Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chof Amud Beis. Starting with the new Gemara on Daf Chof Amud Aleph, 6 lines from the bottom. Our Mishnah states if a animal is found between Yerushalayim and Migdal Eder, that distance in all directions. So if it's a male, then it's to be brought as an oilo. If it's a female, to be brought as a korban shlomim. The Gemara is bothered implicitly. How can a person find an animal that is a zochar, a male, and assume that it's an oila? Ask the Gemara, how could that be? Maybe it's a shlomim. And if it's a shlomim, then the shlomim cannot be burnt entirely, like an oila offering. An oila is an elevation offering. The whole thing goes up on the mizbeach. Masha'ein kain shlomim. Shlomim is eaten by the bailim, in which case it would be prohibited to burn the entire shlomim. Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Shaya Rabba Omar, the great Rabbi Shaya said, Leva b'dmeim shanu, the one who found the animal, he comes with money. Now the money that he comes with is the value of this animal, and he also has a second money that is the value of this animal. And he says as follows, if this animal indeed, that zochar that I found, is a korban oila, then it's nischalel on money A, and money B is a voluntary shlomim. If, however, the animal that I found is a shlomim, then it's going to be nischalel on the second money B, and money A becomes an oila, voluntary oila offering. Rabbi Yochanan, he asks on this suggestion, will we say to a person they should actively then be moyel in kachim? Here the animal is a good tamimis dika animal, does not have any mum. How can you go ahead and mischalel its kedusha onto money? Elo hilchu bohen acher haroif. Rather, Rabbi Yochanan says you go after the roiv, and therefore im roiv zecharim oilois. Then, since the zecharim, the roiv of them are oilois, there's a korban oilo. Im roiv nekeva zivche shlomim, and therefore, if it's a nekeva, the roiv of them are shlomim. Ask the Gemara, ve'ein hashlomim boim mina zechorim mina nekevos, but isn't also shlomim come also to be both from zochar and nekevos? So therefore, maybe indeed this animal is a shlomim, who said that the zochar is a roiv to be oilos. So Gemara says, Ketzad hu oisa, what should he do? The Gemara gives another explanation, another answer to the problem that we have. Moitzin lechulin v'choizer v'oise oison oilos. The Gemara says that over here we will let the animal get a mum. Then what we'll do is then we'll go ahead and then take 2 other animals. The finder of the animal will take 2 other animals, and he'll then say the following: if this animal that got the mum was an oila, so then this animal, number 1, becomes an oila, and the second one is a voluntary shlomim. If indeed the animal that we found is a shlomim, and that now it has a mum, so then it will become a shlomim on the second animal, and the first animal will be a voluntary oila offering. And they will both be brought on the mizbeach, on top of Chof Amud Beis. That's the suggestion. The Gemara now brings another suggestion. How we can answer when one finds an animal that's a zochar, you can assume that's an oila. The Gemara says, Rabbi Zera said, Kama da'at omar taman. Like that which you said over there. Here he's referring to, on Daf Yutes Amud Aleph, there the Gemara said, when you have a coin that is between the shofar of the kinin and the shofar of the nedava, which one do you go by? If it's mechza al mechza, if it's equidistance, then you go lechumra and say that it goes towards the shofar of the korban oila, of the korban nedava. The Gemara asks, how can you do that? Hare kinin is, according to this opinion, there's two birds, a pair of birds. One's a chatos and one is an oila. How can you then say that this will go towards the nedava, which is our olos? To which we have a precedent that the moisar chatos is a nedava, is an oila. So that's what the Gemara is referring to over here. Kama da'at omar taman, like you saw before. T'nai besdin hu al ha-moisarois she'yikuvu oilos. We have a t'nai besdin that those moisarois will then be brought as an oila. So therefore that chatas can be brought as an oila. So too, let's say that over here. Kain at mar uf hacha t'nai besdin hu al ha-oivdoi she'yikuvu oilos. So too, one can even say here that there's a t'nai besdin on those that were lost, these animals that are found, that we can say that it's an oila. So even on the event that it will be something else, we can say that it becomes an oila al t'nai bezdin. Ask the Gemara, wait a second, maybe there's a difference. When do we say there's a t'nai bezdin? That's when indeed it was on a coin. So on the coin there was a suffix, so that we say that the additional coin then can be used for an oila. But for the animal itself, who says that we say that? That's the Gemara's question now. How can we go ahead and then take the animal and say that the animal can be changed to a korban oila? Granted, again, when it comes to the coin, so we say that the coin, they made a t'nai bezdin to say that indeed, since we're not sure what it is, the bezdin already made a t'nai from the onset that it can be used as a korban oila. Omar le, the Gemara answers, Mikivin shu t'nai bezdin ein ze mezid. That's also included in the t'nai bezdin, that even if it's an animal that indeed we're not sure ultimately if it was truly an oila, we'll say that the moisa, the ovud of the animal that is lost, will be indeed a korban oila. The Gemara now says, Om Rabbi Yoiso ad da'ana tamon, while I was still over there in Bavel, Shamas kol Rav Yehuda shal Shmuel. I heard Rav Yehuda ask Shmuel the following question. We saw this Gemara more than once. Hifrish shikloi umes. If a person was mafrish his machtis hashekel, and before the Gizbar took it, he himself died. So what do we do? Hooray! A person who is dead can't get a kapara from a communal offering, and that's what the korban, the machzis shekel goes towards. So what happens with this shekel that he then was mafrish? Asks the Gemara. Answers Shmuel, yiplol lenedava. It falls to a nedava. It goes to a communal offering as a nedava. What happens now? We have a Kohen Gadol who has a chiyuv to bring a minchas chavitin, which is asiras ha'efa, half in the morning and half in the afternoon. And now, when he separates that asiras ha'efa, it comes from his own funds, his personal funds. He has extra money from that asiras ha'efa. What do we do with that extra money? Rabbi Yochanan Omar Yolichaim Liyam Hamelach. Rabbi Yochanan says you can't have any hana from that extra money, and therefore it has to be thrown to the Yam Hamelach. That's Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. Keep that in mind because that's going to be relevant shortly. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer Yipla L'Nedava. Rabbi Eliezer says that it falls to the Nedava. It goes to a communal korban of a Nedava, of a oila offering. Asiris ha'efa shel Kohen Gadol. Now the Gemara brings a brisa. The asiris ha'efa of a Kohen Gadol. Again, we said the Kohen Gadol must bring what's called a minchas chavitin from his personal funds. One half is brought in the morning, one half is brought in the afternoon. Rabbi Yochanan Omar choytze oisev achakach mekadsha. Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion that you first separate and then you're mekadesh. Rabbi Shimon Lakish Omar, the opposite order. You first mekadesh the entire asiras ha'efa, and then you go ahead and separate for the morning half. Masnisa peliga al Rabbi Yochanan. Gemara begins to ask from a Mishnah in Menachos on Rabbi Yochanan, who said again that you first separate and then you're mekadesh. Makriv mechzo machza ovad. It says in a scenario where a Kohen Gadol had brought his half of the asiras ha'efa in the morning, then he died. a new Kohen Gadol was then appointed in his place. So it states over here, Mechza Makri Mechza Umechza Ovad. That means to say that since there's the half was brought, so now the Kohen Gadol brings another half, and that second half is then Ovad. The Gemara says that's a question of Yochanan, because over here we're talking about that the Asiras Ha'efa was the Kedushas Momon. And if it's Kedushas Momon, then all you have to do is be poide the other half. Why is it Mechza Avud? Why is it Avud? Pasala. Rabbi Yochanan would answer, Shekein afidu mois yilchul yam hamelach. We saw just earlier that Rabbi Yochanan says when there's an extra money that was towards the Asiras Ha'efa, what do we do with that? He says, Aser bahano, you have to throw it to the Yam HaMelach. So Rabbi Yochanan l'shitaso, who says you have to throw it to Yam HaMelach, obviously you can't be poide the additional half that was not used. So therefore it's avud. Therefore it has to go lost. It has to be ruined. Masnisa Paligal Rabbi Shimon Lakish. Now the Gemara turns and asks on Rabbi Shimon Lakish, who said the entire thing is miskadsha, and then afterwards you separate the Asiras Ha'efa. Nimtzu shnei chatzoyin krevin v'shnei chatzoyin avudin. It says that two chatzoyin are craving and two chatzoyin are avudin. Here we have the Kohen Gadol who brought the first in the morning his half of the Asiras Ha'efa, then he died, and new Kohen Gadol was appointed in his place, and then he brought in the afternoon a half of the Asiras Ha'efa, of his Asiras Ha'efa. So now we have two halves that are avudin. V'taniya law, it's taught on this brisa mechza rishoin umechza sheni to ubar tzurason v'yetzu lebeis hasreifa. It states over here that half of the first and half of the second have to be what's called tu'ubar tzurasan. You have to wait till it gets to the form changes, like we call noisar. Leave it overnight, and then it's brought to the Beis HaSreifa. Now, according to Reish Lakish, why would you have to leave it over? According to Reish Lakish, it has kedushas haguf. We don't have to then make it tu'ubar tzurasan. You could already burn it the way it is. Pasar law, Rabbi Shimon Lakish would answer, Ke Rabbi Yishmael. He holds like Rabbi Yishmael, the Omer who said, Isaroin mekadesh. The kli of the Isaroin, that itself is mekadesh. And therefore, that itself, he holds, is mekadesh, whereby it has kedushas haguf. Different than this time that we just quoted, requires tu'ubar tzurasan, who does not hold that it becomes niskadesh with kedushas haguf from the kli itself. The Gemara now brings the following brayso: Kishakoy miskarev techila la'avoida mevi asir sa'eva shaloi va'oivda biyadoi. When the kohen he begins his avoida, he brings his asiras ha'efa from his own funds, and he does it with his own biyadayim. He does it with his own avoida. Echad kohen gadol v'echad kohen hedyoit she'avdu. This is both the Kohen Gadol or the Kohen Hedyo who begins his avoida must bring a Asiris Ha'efa. On the beginning of their avoida, they bring, for the first time that they're doing avoida, they bring what's called an Asiris Ha'efa. And it pointed out in this brisa that if indeed they did avoida before bringing this Asiris Ha'efa, nonetheless the avoida is keshera. Rabbi Mana boy meima. Rabbi Mana wanted to say, boy bayom sheniskarev tchila avoida. Boy bayom nisman elios kohen gadol. If the very same day that he begins his avoida, the same kohen becomes also the new kohen gadol, maybe shtayim, he brings two of the karbonos chavita minchas chavita. He brings two of the asiras ha'efa, achas lechinuchoy va'achas lechoivas hayom. One because of his inauguration, and one because of the Kohen Gadol's obligation during the day. This comes to exclude la puke, that you would need three. He's saying over here that even though it was a Kohen who then became a Kohen Gadol, and the Kohen Gadol anyways always has to bring a Asir Sa'ifa, you might think to be 3. He wanted to say 2. Indeed, the conclusion is that you have to bring 3, but he holds, this is what Rabbi Mana wanted to say, that you have to only bring 2. The Gemara now darshins, in terms of the Chavisa, Minchas HaChavita that we're talking about, it states in the Pasuk, I'll read the Pasuk, Al Machavas B'Shemen Tase. It says that it's supposed to be then done on a machavas, on a pan with oil. Morbeches rather, tiviena, it should be scalded and brought. Tufine minchas pitim, it should be baked and pieces of mincha, of a flour offering. Takriv reach nichoich laHashem, you should bring it as in reach nichoich laHashem. Now the Gemara darshans this strange word that says tufine, of baking. Says the Gemara, that word was just preceded by the word tiviena tufine. B'shas haba tufine. The time that it is brought, like the pasuk says, it said tiviena tufine. The time that it's brought, that's when it should be baked. Ve'ein b'shachris tufine, and it should not be baked before that, before the morning. Ve'ho, fact the Gemara Tanina, we learn in a following Mishnah, Hemidu oise chavisin la'asoisin chavisin. It says that we appoint before the morning those who make the chavisin to make the chavisin. So it implies that indeed it was baked before the morning. Answers the Gemara, that's referring to that they were appointed to then make the hot water already before the morning. But in terms of the baking of this minchas chavitin, that wasn't done until the morning. Now the Gemara darshans this word, like I said, which is a strange word, tufine. What is baking? Why is it used in this term? The Gemara explains. Rabbi Yossi b'shem Rabbi Chanina mitagna v'achakach oifoiso. It first, we're talking about where it is first then put into the oil on the pan, which is metugon, fried, and then afterwards it is baked. That's the order. Rabbi Acha b'shem Rabbi Chanina oifoiso v'achacha mitagna. He says the opposite. You first bake it and then you then fry it. The Gemara says tufine te'efena. No, this language of tufine means a combination. Ta'afine na. Te'efena means to bake, and this is na after it's partially cooked, after it's partially, in this case, fried in the oil. Rabbi Oimer, he says another drush of tufine. Te'efena noe. It should be baked noe. That's the word tufine. Tufine is toifena noe. It should be baked nicely, which implies that it's first baked. Rabbi Doisa Omer te'afena ribo. He learns a third drasha. When it says tu ifena, it means te'afena riba. It should be baked many times. Asyan elin palgavosa kehinin palgavosa. So the Gemara explains this that we just explained. These opinions is indeed like the following machlok, the following opinions. Manda omer te'afena noe. Kimanda omar oife v'achakach mitagna. The one who just explained that it means that it's baked noe, that means that it was first baked and afterwards it was fried. The other opinion that says that it's baked and no, meaning partially cooked first, partially fried, means that kimandamar mitagna was first fried and then afterwards it was baked. By the way, the third opinion that we said before, explaining the word as tafena riba, that is baked many times, he holds a combination. He holds that it was first baked, then fried, and then finally baked again. The Gemara now brings the following brayse: Lo soif davar shemeis, ela afilu nitma, and as va'afilu nitcha mimum. Here we're talking about that the Kohen Gadol, we know when the Kohen Gadol dies, that indeed, that we have to then bring another Kohen Gadol who's appointed brings another korban, or the second part of the korban chavita in the afternoon in his place. So Gemara says that's true when the first Kohen Gadol dies. But ask the Gemara now, afilu nitma, is it true even if he became tamei after he brought the first morning of the Asiras Ha'efa? Ve'afilu nitche b'mum? Or does it only mean that when the Kohen Gadol, not only did he die, but he got even a permanent mum, then the second Kohen Gadol must bring his own of the second part of the Asiras Ha'efa. In other words, the Gemara is asking, what happens when the Kohen Gadol brought the first morning's half of the Asiras Ha'efa, and then he became Tameh? What happens then? Does the second Kohen Gadol have to then bring his own, or does he bring the second half of the original Kohen Gadol? Answers the Gemara, Tani, Rabbi Yehuda bar Pazi, the bar Daloya. Rabbi Yehuda bar Pazi from the place called bar Daloya, he said, Va'afilu nidche mimu. He says, even when the first Kohen Gadol gets a permanent mum, meaning to say, not only if the Kohen Gadol dies, does the second Kohen Gadol have to then bring his own hashlama of the Asiras Ha'efa in the afternoon, but even if the first Kohen Gadol gets a permanent mum, does he have to do so? Mashma, however, if the first Kohen Gadol becomes only Tameh, then the second Kohen Gadol will then bring the second half of the original Kohen Gadol's Asiras Ha'efa. Now the Gemara asks the following question: Minayin leKohen Gadol shemeis v'lo minu acher tachtov shetehei minchasa kreva mishel yarshim. From where do we know that a Kohen Gadol? By the way, there was a machlokes in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said if the Kohen Gadol were to die, so then from whose funds does the Asiras Ha'efa be brought if there's not another Kohen Gadol who's appointed in his place yet? In the meanwhile, from which funds do we then bring the now Asiras Ha'efa from? So there's a machlokes. The Tana Kama says it comes from the funds of the Tzibur, and Rabbi Yehuda says it comes from the funds of the Yarshim. That was the machlokes that we found in our Mishnah. So the Gemara now goes on this and says, ask the question again. From where do we know that the Kohen Gadol who died, and there's not yet another Kohen Gadol in his place, that the Yarshim supply the funds for the Asiras Ha'efa? The pasuk says, from his children he will be done. Here the Gemara is really making a drasha, because this pasuk, Mibon Yaseh Oisa, really refers to if there's another Kohen Gadol, all Kohen Gadol subsequently shall bring his own minchas chavitin after Aaron HaKohen. But the Gemara is making a drasha, Mibonov Yaseh Oisa, from his children, meaning the inheritors, the Yarshim should bring then the Asiras Ha'efa, the funds from them should come to Asiras Ha'efa. Yachol, I might think Yavi and Lichatzoin, I might think just as it is brought Lichatzoin by the Kohen Gadol himself, it will also bring Lichatzoin when it's brought now after his death. Talmud Loimer Oisa Kula. From that we learn out, the pasuk is Oisa Mashma Kula, the entire thing, the entire Asiras Ha'efa is brought together. Amarti Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, I said the words of Rabbi Yehuda, who says again in the Mishnah that this Yarshim, the funds of the Yarshim, provide for the Asiras Ha'efa after the Kohen Gadol dies. Rabbi Shimon Omer, however, Rabbi Shimon argues, Eina Bo Ela Mishel Tzibur. He's the Tanakam of our Mishnah, and says that the funds that provide for the Asiras Ha'efa in the interim comes from the Tzibur, the Tzibur fund of the Lishka. Shene'emar is Choik Oilam. He brings a pasuk, in that pasuk is Choik Oilam. Mishe Habris Krusoloi. One whose bris is Krusoloi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a bris with all of Klal Yisrael, and therefore all of Klal Yisrael means that the Tzibur has then to have the chiyuv to provide for those Asiras Ha'efa. The pasuk goes on to say Kol Lil Toktar. It says it's completely burnt. From here we make a drasha, Kolil Kalil Lahakdora. In its entirety is it burnt. Therefore, it's not just a half of the Asiras Ha'efa, which is normally brought by the Kohen Gadol, but now it's going to be brought in its entirety.